This video is brought to you by Red Digital Cinema, AV8 Media, and EIZO. Lenses sponsored by Zeiss, and lighting sponsored by Aperture. Hi there, I'm Yin, and today we're going to discuss how to set up DaVinci Resolve to color grade red coat raw footage without sacrificing dynamic range. With the advent of Image Processing Pipeline 2 or IPP2, we have much better ways to start a color grading project in DaVinci Resolve for red coat raw. Let's go explore those methods now. Method number 1. If I want to use IPP2, color science and gamma as a starting point, I can go to project settings over here and click on camera raw. I'm going to change the decode using to project, and suddenly all these settings below will populate and allow me to manipulate the footage. I'm going to change the color science now to IPP2. Now if you're using version 14.3, this will show up as version 3 instead, but it's the same thing. Today I'm going to assume that I'm delivering for HD broadcast, so I'm going to change the color space to Rec 709. I'm going to change the gamma curve to the corresponding 1886. Okay? So you can see that the image is generally okay, but I feel aesthetically it needs a tweak. I feel this is a little bit too close to clipping, even though it hasn't fully clipped, and it's a bit too contrasty in the background. The nice thing about IPP2 is that it allows you to make aesthetic tweaks from within the raw settings. I'm going to go to my highlight roll-off now, and I'm going to change the highlight roll-off to very soft. And once I do that and I option save, you can see straight away that the highlight roll-off is a lot softer. Now, with regard to the overall contrast of the shot, I can tweak the output tone map, and I can choose to make it low contrast, high contrast, or in this case, maybe I might say even no contrast, so that it becomes much flatter and reveals a lot more information in the shadows in general. Without doing very much work, IPP2 gives us a very easy way to get a great looking Rec 709 image without losing too much highlight information in the shot. If I want even more flexibility though, then what I want to do is I want to start grading from a log state. So method number 2, I'm going to have to modify my camera raw settings very slightly. Okay, so my color space, I'm going to change this to red, white, gamma, RGB instead. And I'm going to use log 3G10 as my starting point. Now, why do we choose these settings? Red, white, gamma, RGB gives us access to all the color that the sensor ever captured. And log 3G10 pretty much guarantees we have access to all of the dynamic range the sensor ever captured as well. I'm going to option save so you can see what that looks like. Now, if you look at the actual image, it's very flat, of course, as expected of log, but if you look at the waveform, you can see that the blacks aren't very lifted. In this state, you'll notice that if I were to change the output tone map or the highlight roll-off, it will have absolutely no effect. And this is correct because we are in a log state. If I don't want to mess around with raw settings too much, there is a third easier way to do this. First, I'm going to set my camera raw back to camera metadata. Okay, and I'm going to go to my color management area instead. You notice that under color science, we have the ability to change this to DaVinci YRGB color managed. And the minute I do that, 2 additional functions open up, input color space and output color space. Now this has turned on Resolve Color Management or RCM. And what RCM does in a nutshell is that it applies color space and gamma transformations based on your defined settings. I'm going to leave the output color space as Rec 79 Gamma 2.4, but I'm going to change the timeline color space to Rec 2020 Gamma 2.4 instead, so that I have a wider color gamut to grade in. And I should be changing this input color space to one of the red options over here, but I'm not going to. I'll explain to you why in a short while. I'm going to hit option save right now, and you'll notice that the image has already tweaked itself in terms of mid-tone information, in terms of the overall contrast of the shot. It already looks like it's suitable for Rec 709. Now what happened? DaVinci Resolve is smart enough to detect red coat raw footage automatically, so it doesn't need to be told input color space at all. In fact, I could change this to whatever, it wouldn't make a difference because DaVinci Resolve has already picked up on the fact that it is red coat raw. The only thing I could do that would make a difference is to hit bypass. If I hit bypass, then it will go back to whatever my red coat raw settings are. I'm not going to do that today. If I go to the clip settings and try to override the color space and gamma curve, you realize that it's not changeable because RCM has taken over. So now we have a very simple way of transforming the footage to make it look suitable for Rec 709, but it looks as though this highlight has been clipped. The good news is this, it's not really gone. If I go to my primary color wheels and I gain down, you'll see that the information comes back So what was happening is that the information was actually hidden above the waveform monitor here, and it's coming back as I gain down on the image. So what RCM has done is actually preserve the entire dynamic range of the raw image. Now, the question is this: why didn't RCM preserve my highlight information in the first place? The reason, as far as we can tell, is this: RCM prioritizes the midtones of the shot. And anything that doesn't fit within Rec. 709 then exceeds it and goes above the waveform monitor. This has got nothing to do with RCM being faulty and everything to do with the fact that Rec. 709 is a standard dynamic range deliverable, which brings us to the topic of why high dynamic range deliverables are necessary. If you want to learn how to evolve this workflow for HDR color grading, there's a link for that on the screen right now. You can click on it. And in the meantime, you can check out the following links in the description below. If you want to learn more about RED cameras, or if you want to download sample footage like the ones I'm using for this exercise, there's a link for that. AV8 Media offers many different color grading courses, and if you're interested to attend any, there's a link you can check out. And finally, if you want to learn more about this EIZO CG3145 HDR reference monitor, there's a link for that as well below. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.